Mama. I'm Courtney Cecil, proud mom of two boys and an organizational culture and behavior change executive. And I'm a believer in building a movement to help the burned out, overwhelmed working moms reclaim their control and free time so that they can confidently remain in the workforce without losing the sanity or themselves. Now, let's get started.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another snack size episode of the Life Management System. I'm your host, Courtney Cecil, and this time we are going to talk about to camp or not to camp. So if you follow me on Instagram, if you don't, you should, at Working Moms Movement. But if you follow me there, you have likely got a message from me saying, hey, I really try to tailor my content to my audience. What's important to you? What do you struggle with most as a working mom? And a specific topic that came at a request to say, I really like to hear about this was summer camps, or more specifically, what the heck do we do with our children while we work if they're in school and they're school aged and we still have to go into the office? So, first of all, thank you so much for the question. Thank you for engaging. But second, let me start by unpacking a couple of the different options that we have at our disposal that many of us don't think about. So often we have a tendency to think it's camp or bust. But that's not always the case. In fact, we always used to have an au pair and feel incredibly spoiled after last summer when the very first time we had to actually put the kids in camp all day, every day, and just really missed that flexibility we had from our au pairs, but most especially made me empathize with you poor souls that have been doing that for years now. It's really freaking hard. Let me just acknowledge that. There's no easy way. But before you think that camps are your only option, let me break down a couple things for you to consider. First, of course, like beyond the camps is a nanny. And nannies, hypothetically, will tend to make us think that it costs more than camps, but it doesn't have to. So one of the options might be that you do a nanny share with your neighbors or somebody nearby. Another is that maybe you'd only do a nanny for a half a day. So that way the nanny can play with them, get a lot of the physical stimulation, do a lot of the educational stimulation and that sort of thing, prep lunch, and then either force downtime to read and that sort of thing in the room, or you just stick them in front of the tablets or whatnot. So having a nanny doesn't have to be as expensive as having a full-time dedicated nanny if you do have the flexibility to either share with a neighbor or to have them only come for a half a day. Um, and what I'd like to call out though is that the immediate assumption is that it's more expensive, but the thing is, it's probably more expensive for sure if you only have one kid. But if you have two or more kids, it very well might be cheaper, particularly if you use a teacher or students. I love, love, love using college students. They tend to be a lot more reasonable. So, as an example, let's pretend for the sake of the conversation, you've got two kids. So, if you have two kids in camp, and you multiply 10 weeks worth of camps, and let's say the average camp is $400, that's $8,000. $8,000 a summer that you're spending on just camps for the two kids. Now let's apply that same thinking to a nanny. So it's the same 10-week period, but let's say that you use a student and they charge you $20 an hour. Well, I know, let me be clear, that some of you coming from cities will not be able to find that. And some of you coming from towns will be able to find something a lot cheaper. But if you get a student in a reasonably sized city in America, you can probably get them for around $20 an hour. Well, by the same logic, 10 weeks times 40 hours a week times $20 an hour is still 8,000. So those come to a wash. So the cost of putting two kids in camp and the cost of having full-time nannies for $20 an hour ends up being exactly the same. Now, let's pretend that you only have the nanny come for a part day, or let's pretend that you split it with a neighbor. All of a sudden that 8,000 gets even cheaper. Or if you work at a big corporation, so many people here are corporate employees, and many corporate employees have access to backup care through care.com. So care.com for most employees and or employee benefit programs is $8 an hour. So if you want to apply all 4 of those weeks to a nanny or for in-home care, then all of a sudden you're saving a whole lot of money. You're saving almost $2,000 by leveraging your backup care. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make it work or make the math work to make it a little bit cheaper and to make a nanny possible if that's what you want to do. I just don't want everybody to assume that a camp is going to be your only option or the cheapest option. So, another thing that you can consider that does get really hard and really stressful is just staggering your work from home days with your spouse so that way you can both be at home. So, my husband and I both have to go in 3 days a week. So let's pretend that we do 2 days at home and then one of those days we use backup care or a nanny or something of that nature. So all of a sudden we're only having to pay for one day using our corporate backup care plans at essentially $8 an hour. And then the other 4 days we're both home. That would get really hard by the time the summer's all done, but it's still another option. So once again, just putting that out there so that way you think through your options before assuming that camps are the only way to go. Okay, so as you start considering which option is the best for you, it's going to be no surprise for anybody that's listening for a while that I'm going to say whatever you do needs to align with your family goals. So, as an example, is your goal to slow down, like using summer to slow down? So, last summer, I massively overscheduled. Again, it was the first time that we'd used summer camps, and we had the boys lined up for day camps from top to bottom. We'd drop them off at 8:30, 9. We'd go pick them up at between 3:30 and 5. And it was like that every single day. It did not feel like it was slowing down. It also happened to be the first summer that we had a pool. We didn't really get to use it like I thought we'd want to, or like we wanted to, like I thought we'd be able to. It's just a lot harder. So if your goal is to slow down, maybe overdoing camps is not the right way to go, particularly because the logistics become very hard. So many of us are accustomed to having access to buses during the school year. So my boys probably are on the bus a half to 3/4 of the time. So I'm used to having that to help with making logistics easier. I don't have to worry about drop off. I don't have to worry about pickup. Getting in and out of the door is just really easy. Well, with camps, that's not an option. I'm having to physically drive 30 to 45 minutes every single day to drop them off and pick them up based on where we live. That's really freaking hard. And of course, camps naturally end in the middle of the afternoon as well, somewhere between 3:30 and 5. Like that's really hard too. So think about whether or not slowing down is important to you or whether maximizing the amount of time you are able to work is important to you. I'm very blessed that there's at least enough flexibility between my husband and I that we can stagger camp weeks and non-camp weeks and still be able to figure out how to make it work. But if slowing down is important to you, maybe a nanny is going to be better because you're not having to worry about getting your kids ready. You're not having to worry about taking them and dropping them off. You're not having to worry about them the camp ending in the middle of your workday. So that might leave you to say, you know what? I believe a nanny is more important for me. Okay, the other things that you might want to consider are what type of independent skills that you either want to refine or introduce them to. So, as an example, perhaps it is a camp that teaches them a hard skill, swimming, soccer, tennis, coding, engineering, whatever it may be. Those type of camps are way easier to get access to over summer than they often are over the school year. And in fact, that's a really easy way for you to expose them to a lot of different things and see what sticks, see what lights them up. The other great thing about camps that you can take advantage of is it allows them to become a little bit more independent. They have to be able to get their lunches ready during the day. They have to be able to tie their shoes, things like that that you don't necessarily have to force if they're home with a nanny. So there certainly are advantages. Once again, I think it's so important to consider what the goals are of your family because that inherently should influence your decision to go a camp route or to go the nanny route. The other thing that you should probably consider, though, is their level of stimulation because it is really easy for during the summer when everybody's hot and you're going full speed to get overstimulated. And particularly the younger years where they're still adjusting to not napping, that just gets really hard. So being realistic about what your stimulation rate is of your kids is probably very valuable. The last thing I'll say, if you are willing to part with your kids for a week, overnight camp is absolutely life-changing for you and for them. So we live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and have such great access to the camps in the North Carolina mountains, about an hour and a half away. And we fully take advantage of that. So my husband, Richard, is an Eagle Scout. And scouts are just not in the cards for us for a lot of different reasons. Most especially, I just don't have the freaking energy after work to commit to getting them to troops every night. It just is not going to happen for us. But the overnight camps are one of the ways we can get exposure to their new life skills. So, what I love about the overnight camps is, well, first of all, as a parent, it's life changing. I don't think I could do any more than a week. Like, maybe 2 weeks. I could probably do 2 weeks because I feel like the time with them, the summers with them are just so fleeting. I don't want to spend year after year with them gone for a full month. But 1 week, 2 weeks, absolutely. And it allows me to be so relaxed, so productive, and I get so much adult time and like marriage time in. It's really, 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 really healthy for me and something I look forward to every year. Not to wish my life away with my kids, but it honestly is just the absolute break I need in the middle of summer. But it's also really good for your kids. So I send Witten and Wyatt, my boys, to a camp in the North Carolina mountains every summer. And what I love about it is that it teaches them the independent skills that they are not able to get under our wings when we're constantly sitting over there, over their shoulders, watching them and nagging them and reminding them. So, as an example, hey boys, like, remember you need to wear your shower shoes and you need to remember the difference between this towel, which is used for the lake and pool, and this towel, which is used for your showers. They have to remember to bathe themselves. They have to remember to do all the things like eating healthy and eating their vegetables that they don't do when we naturally put it in front of them at home. So it has certainly stretched us all, both parents and kids, but in a really healthy way and is something that we remain committed to until the boys graduate. So that's all for now. Hopefully, it gave you a couple things to think about as you consider what summer plans make sense for your kids to be able to balance their childcare needs and stimulation and growth with your survival needs, if anything, right, moms? Your survival needs and being able to get your job done. So, anyway, thanks for tuning in. And if you're interested in hearing more about tips to help you manage your time and your stress, I've got a live training that I would love for you to tune into. So on March 17th at 11 o'clock Eastern, I will be delivering a training. I do intend to send a recording on it, but this training is to help you learn how I found 12 plus hours back every single week by changing a couple core things. So if you're interested in saving 12 hours a week, you're going to want to tune into that training. I'll drop the link in the show notes, but you can also get access at www.workingmomsmovement.com/live-training. Again, it's March 17th at 11 o'clock Eastern. It is far better live. There will be bonuses for showing up live, but if you miss it, you'll get the recording too. But anyway, friends, thanks again for being here. Rate and review us if you haven't already. And until next time, if nobody's told you lately, you're doing a great job. You've got this, Mama.